So my nervous system, I now understand, is hypersensitive to everything in life. And so my day-to-day is very much, well, the main aim is in my day-to-day is very much to try to shift my nervous system from the sympathetic nervous system, which is the flight, fight, freeze, fawn response, which uses a lot of energy, to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, which is where your body can regenerate itself and its energy. I've written a letter that's for my newsletter, which lists out all of the things I'm going to share in this video. So if you'd like to read along at the same time, or if you would like to read it separately or send it to someone, feel free to check that out. I'll put the description or the link in the description box as well. And I think that it's important to add a disclaimer here that this is not a general list of how-tos that apply to anyone regardless of their unique situation. How-to posts in general are the things that contributed to me burning to a crisp in the first place. So I don't mean to patronize by including this disclaimer. It's definitely not personal to you. I just can relate to the feeling of wanting to search for like the magic bullet online and see someone talking about something that gives me hope, and then I apply and like I think, oh, I'm going to apply it and all of my problems are going to be solved and it'll all be like rainbows and unicorns. But the truth is that this is my personal experience that is very much dependent upon my set of specific, unique circumstances. And so I just want to say that to encourage everyone to keep that in mind. That's not to say that the things that I share here cannot be used as like seeds of inspiration, but I think that it's important that you take them away and think about how you might need to water those seeds and feed those seeds in your own way, in your own time, to make them fit into your life and work for you. But that said, the reason why I'm sharing this post is because there's so few resources out there for people who find themselves in burnout. And I know that because I looked. When I initially went to the doctors and realised that I'm neurodivergent but also was suffering with a bad burnout, they were very keen to give me medication and very keen to put me on a very, very long waiting list for therapy. But that was it. You know, I was in crisis and I was sent out with very little information about how I could actually practically help myself. The only reason why I've been able to collect this toolkit together, not the only reason, but a big part of it, is that I am one of the lucky people who've been able to access counselling privately. And I feel that it's important to share the knowledge that I have learned. And as I was collating this list, it really did dawn on me how big the list is. And it looks quite overwhelming on first glance. You'll see how long this video is. It kind of is an indicator. I don't want that to overwhelm you because I think that this list has taken me 18 months to build and I'm still working on it. But also it's not just down to me and the access to therapy I've had, which has been an immense privilege. It's also had to do with the fact that I have been able to take time out of work initially as sick leave when I was dealing with the worst of my burnout. I also have a support system around me. I have a husband who's been incredible and a few close people who have been there for me as well. Yeah, I encourage you to try not to compare yourself directly to my situation because you never know what kind of support people have, and we're all on different journeys. This is also not to say that I have my shit together. This toolkit is great on the days where I'm having a good day, but there are lots of days where life is still very, very difficult despite having this toolkit, and it's not perfect. Whether it's something that's like perceived as being small, like waking up one day and realizing that the breakfast I've been eating for 6 months is no longer palatable to me, or something that's perceived to be like a big thing, like having a CPTSD flare up. Life is often rocky, and day to day I find myself tasked with what feels often like an uphill battle of getting back to some semblance of like a center or a balance, even though I don't think those words I really want to use for myself because it puts a lot of pressure on something that is very artificial. But what I can say is that this list does help me greatly navigate the twists and turns that I come across in life. So with that said, here is the list. So the first thing is creating a low demand lifestyle. It's not possible to completely eliminate stress from your life, and the ability for each person to do that will depend, as I've mentioned, on their circumstances. But for me, it was critical to do an audit of my life and to work out where I could reduce stress, minimize stress, change the way I was doing things in order to minimize stress, and really think critically about why I was doing the things I was doing, whether I was doing them for my benefit or I was doing them to people please, or because I just thought I should, or because of social conditioning. And over time, I have managed to whittle down the stress in my life to a more manageable level. In practice, this looked like things like I have a personal rule that's rarely broken, where I only socialize, especially in groups, once a week. I also realised that I needed buffer time around those social occasions to be able to process and to rest and recuperate, so I never have back-to-back social occasions anymore. I also simplified my routines and added in a lot more rest throughout the day, because for everything that I have to do in the day, for every demand, there is a stress associated with it, an anxiety associated with it, and a transition between tasks associated with it. So in one day, I try to reduce the number of demands upon myself, and that goes for looking at a week and a month and a year as well. I try to pace myself. The second point is to try to accommodate your needs. And this is a very broad brush thing to say, because to be honest with you, everyone's needs are different. I know that for me, it took a long time to actually work out what my needs were, because I had learned to suppress them over so many years. And so it's taken me this amount of time to start to figure out, actually, no, these are my needs. These are kind of like red lines in the sand type needs where I absolutely need them to be met. These are needs where I can be flexible in these situations. You know, it takes a long time to build up that self-knowledge again, now understanding that it's okay to have needs and it's okay to accommodate yourself. So taking an example that I've shared about the buffering, for example, I know that after social events, I need that buffering time, and quite often I need to be in a room alone, I need silence, I sometimes need darkness. I either take a nap or I engage in sort of my interests that renew my energy. That's just a given now when I socialize afterwards, and often before those, that's what I need to do to accommodate myself for that social activity. The third thing is keeping a daily habit tracker. So as I mentioned, actually being in touch with what my needs are is difficult, and that has in part to do with interoception. Interoception is an internal sensory system in which the physical and emotional states of the person are consciously or unconsciously noticed, recognized, and responded to. So that's what interoception is, and mine sucks. So my physical and emotional needs take a long time to register for me. This means that, like, you know, I often don't remember to drink or eat, especially when I'm focused on something that I'm interested in or I'm very stressed. And I also don't really register emotional problems in the instant that they kind of come to me and happen. It can be like days later that I'm processing things or realizing that I'm feeling a certain way because of an emotion that's come up for me. Now, the daily habit tracker is really great for especially the physical needs. It reminds me to check in with these physical needs. So things like sleep, taking my meds, exercising, eating, drinking water, and to do that throughout the day. And it's really great for helping to spot patterns. So say, for example, I wake up one day and I'm feeling even more exhausted than usual, and it doesn't make sense and I don't understand why. And I look at my habit tracker and I realise that yesterday I drank no water and I also had a terrible night's sleep. Then I see, okay, well, maybe it's got something to do with that. And it's not always like cut and dry, but it definitely helps me to hypothesize as to why I might be feeling a certain way. And that's important because then when I have that information, I can work out how to accommodate myself. The next thing is that I have a to-do list that I measure in energy. So each night I will make a to-do list for the next day. Not every day, but most days. And in the morning when I wake up, I will look at that list and I will check in with my habit tracker, check in with myself, and see whether or not I feel like I have the energy for those tasks, and organize the list of to-dos into tasks by energy. So for example, I'll have a green, yellow and red light system, where green means it's a task that takes very little energy, orange means it takes a fair bit of energy, and red means it takes a lot of energy. Now, it's not a super scientific approach. Obviously, there are only 3 categories, but it just helps me to think about actually what the task will involve and whether or not I personally have the energy to complete that task that day. It also helps me to assess, like, with alongside that urgency, like if I don't have much energy that day and there's a task on there that I've been hoping to get to, but it involves a lot of energy and it's not urgent, I won't think twice. I'll shift it to the next day or the next week and just be okay with the fact that I haven't done it on the day that I thought I was going to do it, because I've been operating at like 500 times my capacity for so long that a big part of moving forwards now and recovering is being okay and accepting and celebrating, slowing down and working within my own limits. And the process is teaching me that my to-dos can often wait longer than I think they can. The next thing is planning my day and time blocking. I never used to plan my day. It used to be hugely overwhelming for me. Yeah, I really didn't like it because I didn't know how to get things done. So it was very anxiety inducing for me, and so I just avoided it completely. But now I plan every minute of my day, which might sound like a complete 180, and I guess it is, but it's a very specific type of planning that I do that includes a lot of flexibility. So I will use time blocking, which basically means that you take the time throughout the day and you block it into chunks of activity, but within that chunk I will leave what I actually want to do up to me to decide later on when I get there. So say for in the morning, for example, I want to do some writing because I have a work project. I have various work projects that are associated with writing that I know I need to do. I will just say an hour of writing in the morning, but then within that I won't decipher what writing I want to do. I could work on my newsletter, I could work on my blog, I could work on my writing projects. I'll just see what I have the energy for when I get to it. Same with leisure, for example. In the afternoon I always have like a rest block, and same thing again, I know that in that time I will rest, so I have a general direction for the day, but I don't know exactly what I'll do. Maybe I'll nap, maybe I'll read a book, maybe I'll watch a show. The thing that really helps me about this setup is that it gives me enough structure as an autistic person to have sameness, but it's not so structured that I become demand avoidant. It also helps me to kind of rein in the ADHD side of my brain, which just wants to do whatever it wants whenever it wants to do it. But there is enough newness and opportunity to change my plans within the day because the blocks are very much, they're quite wide. And that being said, it's not like I can't change my plans. The other good thing about time blocking is that if I get to midday and the plans for the afternoon that I'd made no longer feel right, I will just change them and I will reblock the rest of the day out. I'm okay with that because the main purpose of time blocking for me is to check in with myself throughout the day and to be intentional with how I spend my time, even if spending my time is like just watching 3 TV shows back to back. But if I don't keep an eye on how I'm spending my time, that's when I find that I can end up spiraling or getting stuck and really not knowing how to help myself. The next thing is asking for help. I never used to ask for help, ever. I can't think of one example really, like truly, where I reached out for help when I needed it, but I'm trying to learn to do that, and I'm starting with my husband. I've been practicing with him when I've done my to-do list for the day. For example, say I realise I've woken up with less energy than I thought and there's something urgent that I need to get done that day, I will ask him to help me, and that may look like completely delegating it to him if possible, if he's up for doing it and he has the time and capacity, or it might look like him sitting with me and helping me do it, like so us doing it together basically, or it might just look like body doubling, so he's working on his thing, I'm working on my thing, and that helps me to move through when I'm feeling not quite so great. So sometimes the help is practical like that, other times it's more cognitive, so I ask for help with things like making decisions, things like working through emotions, or even just like processing out loud. Sometimes I will just ask him to listen to me talk because I just need to talk to process something, and that really helps. The next thing is responding to when I am understimulated and overstimulated. Those two things, again, it's hard for me to spot. I'm working on it, but I do find that both of those things contribute to a mismanagement of my energy, and they can lead to shutdowns and meltdowns. So I try to be on top of that kind of thing. It's quite critical for me, but it's probably one of the hardest hardest bits for me. The next thing is shutdown and meltdown protocols, which I guess is linked. I try to look out for signs in my physical body, emotionally, mentally, of shutdowns and meltdowns coming my way and like being on the horizon, so that I can put into action the shutdown and meltdown protocols that I've put together with my support team, which is currently my husband. As I mentioned, the idea is if I'm responding to understimulation and overstimulation accordingly, then I won't get to the point of shutdown and meltdown. But obviously you cannot completely control everything, and there are frequently times where they just happen. So I need to be prepared and understand how to minimize the impact of them and to recover from them. And that's where these protocols come in. So my shutdown and meltdown protocols personally, because they will differ depending on everyone's needs, but mine personally include having a burnout box, sitting in a dark room under a weighted blanket, with a comfort item, with a comfort show or something, or comfort book, and spending time alone. I'll often stim and will listen to my favorite music or favorite shows, eat my favorite foods as an oral stim, and most of the time I'll drift off to sleep, which is when my brain sort of reboots itself. So the next thing, which is part of what I've just mentioned, is the burnout box. I'm actually creating a resource at the moment, which is just kind of fun to help anyone who would like help with creating their own burnout box. But essentially it's what it says on the tin. It's a box of things that help you during burnout. So things like deodorant, safe foods, cuddly toys, whatever brings you comfort, having it all in one place can be really helpful. The next thing is daily walks. Since I got a dog 3 years ago, I am a complete convert to daily walks. It's hugely helped me. And not only does it help with mental state, but it also helps with my energy levels. There's a certain feeling I get in terms of my energy when I come back from a walk with my dog that I don't get when I just spend the day inside. So there are days during burnout where I can't go outside and I really miss it. So as soon as I feel that I can get outside safely without compromising myself and risking a shutdown or a meltdown, then I will do that. The next thing is vitamins. I now take a multivitamin every day, and whilst I can't scientifically prove that it's necessarily helping with me, I'm pretty sure it's contributed. I specifically take them in the morning and I just put the tablets next to my toothbrush, and it's a habit stacking technique that my mum taught me, where she just said, when you see your toothbrush, just think teeth and tablets. So now whenever I see my toothbrush, I think, oh, I've got to take my tablets. And I do that the same for the other medication I take. I've taken 2 brands, both of which I thought were fine. One is Heights and the other is Get Dopa. I chose them specifically because they said that they help with brain fog and with energy. The next thing is sleep routine. I sleep a lot. I have a regular sleep schedule, or at least I try, so I get 8+ hours a night. I wake up early in the morning. The waking up early in the morning thing is not really preference so much as that's literally just the way I'm wired. I just wake up early in the morning with a lot of energy, but it also means that I have to go to bed early to be able to get the 8+ hours that I need, and that can be hard because as soon as it gets dark, my brain just goes into overdrive and ends up whirring away. So I'm currently working on my sleep routine in the evening to try and help me with that process, but currently it's quite simple. It basically just looks like no screens. I like taking a bath and reading in the bath, and then I go to bed and I lie there for half an hour and just hope to God that I fall asleep. That's it for now, but sleep is definitely a big one for me. And when I'm struggling to sleep, which is often for a week or 2 out of the month, I will take naps in the afternoon. Naps save my bacon. The next thing is a low dopamine morning routine. Now, look, I don't know the science behind this, and I see this everywhere, all over the internet, about the importance of a low dopamine morning for ADHD brains. I really don't know scientifically if that is true, but I tried it, and for me personally, it does help. Staying away from laptops and screens, especially my phone, for the first hours of the morning is super helpful, and instead I will go out for a walk with my dog, or I will go swimming or do yoga or anything that kind of gets my physical body moving. And yeah, I find it to be super, super relaxing now, even though at the start it was definitely a very alien feeling and it took a while to get used to. Now I would say it's my favorite time of the day. I actively look forward to that time of day by the end of the day every single day. This takes me on to the next point, which is minimizing my use of screens more generally. If you watch my other videos, you'll know that I'm experimenting with this a lot, whether it be spending less time on my phone, less time on my laptop, working out how to structure my life so that I am able to use the internet in the ways that serve me, but I don't become addicted, I guess. I already was addicted, but so I can save myself from this addiction. Some days, especially the days where I'm struggling, I will spend a lot of time on screens, and other days where I feel a bit more on top of things, I will intentionally try to spend less time on screens. It's not really a moral competition, like I'm not going to berate myself over it. It's more so just that I know and have noticed the pattern that when I do try to be more intentional about how much time I spend on my screens, I generally feel a lot better. The next thing is grounding exercises. So when I am in my sympathetic, or when my sympathetic nervous system is activated, so that's the flight, fight, fawn, freeze response, and I'm hypervigilant, I use a lot of energy. And being neurodivergent and having CPTSD and an anxiety disorder and various other things, there are so many points in the day at which that happens that it's constant work to bring myself back to some kind of baseline, or to ground myself, as I guess the word grounding exercises suggests. Whilst I'm not an expert or a therapist or anything like that, I do find through my own experience that it does tend to help. My favourite one is the butterfly technique, which is where you take your thumbs and you overlap them and you put your hands on your chest with your fingertips just by your collarbone, and you alternate double taps on each side. And as I'm doing this, I'm feeling the weight of the hands on my chest, I'm feeling the warmth, and I'm concentrating on tapping, and it helps me to remind myself that I'm in this physical room and in this physical body. I'll link an example of a YouTube video in the description box so that you can check it out. And the last thing is that there are actually 7 types of rest, and learning about them was really helpful for me, because I originally thought that rest was just like sitting down and doing nothing, which was like 1, very unappealing, and 2, virtually impossible for my ADHD brain. I think that learning about the 7 types of rest has given me like a toolkit and an arsenal of things that I can go to when I know I need to rest, but just sitting and doing nothing doesn't feel accessible to me. I've written a whole newsletter on the 7 types of rest and how I implement them in my life, so I will link that in the description box for you to check out, rather than lengthening this video and going into all of the types of rest right now. I think I also made a YouTube video on it as well, so I'll link that in the description box as well. And that's it, I think. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments and I may make another video addressing them. I would also love to hear how you deal with energy management in the comments. I think it would be very helpful to everyone to pool our resources. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoy my videos, then check out my newsletter. It's another place where you can hear from me on a weekly basis, and also support this channel and my newsletter through a paid subscription if you feel like it. Literally no pressure whatsoever, but it's there if you feel like you would like to and are able to contribute. Thank you to everyone who already supports me as patrons of the newsletter, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!